of like, I guess, for myself and life that you should never take for granted. So ultimately, that's what kind of, I guess, sparked the idea of wanting to become a teacher somewhat. But still, I kind of went through different avenues to do so. Like, so I probably went through the realm of coaching. Probably went through the realm of, I say, yeah, like coaching or organizing programs, things like that.
What up, world? It's your boy, Stevens Ramirez, for Not For Nothing podcast, while we are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Welcome to another luxurious episode. And today we dive into the world of education, personal growth, and the impact of change. Our guest brings a unique perspective from both the classroom and the sunny shores of Hawaii. My friend, my brother, my good colleague, the teach, the one and only Lionel J. Edward. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Steven. Thank you for having me today, man.
Oh man, nah, I appreciate you, taking your time and obviously seeing the beautiful, luxurious background,
Mhm.
nice and sunny, chilling in the Hawaii. um, so as we just dive right into it, can you share with us the journey into the
Mhm.
field of education and what motivated you to teach? We're gonna just rip the band-aid and go into it.
So I would say, like, for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I never had any passion to teaching. No, honestly, like it was kind of a something that came upon me. Like growing up in New York City, being the youngest of five kids, like
Mm-hmm.
everyone else is all girls other than my one brother. Never really cared much for it. I was a class clown. I used to cut teachers' ass. I used to be, growing up in New York City, being bad as
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
like
yeah.
watching seeing teachers cry, shit like that. Like, oh well, that's him. I would never do anything like that. But I would say like I don't, it's not something I ever thought I'd do,
Mm-hmm.
but as I've grown up and matured throughout my life, I realized like the need for teachers and like the
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to actually give back. So I would say like upon like it's actually funny because I didn't even have a background in education upon becoming a teacher, but my background was in
Wow.
social work. So, but I definitely see the polarities between social work and like the education realm. But
Mm-hmm.
when I went to University of Maryland for some time, and it's actually kind of even had a rocky start to my own education as a whole. Like as you know, we
Mm-hmm.
both went to Clinton Community College, where like there was no structure, there was no foundation. There was like,
Yep.
man, if you want to show up, you're gonna show up. It is what it is,
Figure it out.
essentially. Yeah,
Show
along
up
the
to
way.
class. Either way, you're gonna get marked.
And the hard part is like imagine me like I was 17 years old going all the way out to Plattsburgh, not even knew what the hell that shit was.
Mm-hmm.
Being on campus for the first time, meeting a lot of Bronx niggas. Like, I ain't gonna lie, man. So wait, this was just for clarity. Can we have like profanity on this
Yeah,
platform?
yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Just want to make sure.
I ain't. Don't worry about it. Full send.
All right, all
Full
right, all right.
send.
Just wanted to make sure. So yeah, go meet a lot of different people from all throughout the five boroughs. Like I didn't care about education, no, honestly, at all. Never cared about it. Like would be someone who was like C's and D's student. But
Mm-hmm.
I think at a certain point in my life, I realized, hey man, it kind of took that moment of being kicked out of Clinton Community College to really shake me up and say, hey man, like education is something that you really should be taking seriously, and not something that should be taken for granted because
Mm-hmm.
like as simple as well how as small as it is in terms of being able to have an education to be able to sit in the classroom and have people that actually are around you who care for you, that's one of the most important parts of like I guess for myself and life that you should never take for granted. So ultimately that's what kind of I guess sparked the idea of wanting to become a teacher somewhat. But still, I kind of went through different avenues to do so. Like, so I probably went through the realm of coaching. Probably went through the realm of, I say, yeah, like coaching or organizing programs, things like that. So I always found myself teaching, but just not in the classroom setting, I would say.
Wow. So before we dive more into the experience of education, like you stated earlier, you were the youngest of five,
Mhm.
and you was the class clown. So I guess being the youngest and able to get away with certain things, because me, I'm the oldest, so I'm like the first experience. Like, okay, yeah, we're gonna nip things in the butt. So you being the youngest, have that helped you create some of your comedic flair throughout your upbringing into the realm of education?
I think it was kind of one of those double-edged sword type of things. Like being the youngest of five was great, being that like I didn't, there wasn't anybody that I was watching. Like I wasn't the example for anybody else. Because whatever I
Yeah.
decided to do, it was me. It wasn't like my older sister who kind of probably had an even much more tougher role, being that there's four other
Hmm.
people watching every single step that you make, whether it's the mistakes, whether it's the triumphant things that you're able to do. There's a lot
Hmm.
more built pressure. So I think it was kind of like a gift and a curse because I am someone who's like very like funny. I love to use comedy in my own classrooms to be able to help build connections and things of that
Yeah.
nature. But the reason I say it's a curse because I think I also would use that as a way to gain attention, like gain and in the realm of like my both my parents was by the time I was in high school or such, they were about like in their mid to like late 60s. So like they were
Hmm.
kind of like on a retirement type of role. So I was kind of being my parents were grandparents essentially. So a lot of the things that they would
Wow.
definitely watch over in terms of making sure that like say all my other siblings were keeping up their grades and things of that nature. By the time I came around, it was kind of a little too late. Because it was like, we're kind of giving half effort because we're kind of retired already, essentially. Like there would be a lot of trips that they would make back and forth between Haiti and America, and it was like it wasn't like all right, we're taking a week off or 2 weeks off. It was like all right, 6 months out of the year we're gonna be in Haiti. You figure it out while you're in America. We'll send you some money to be able to buy food and things of that nature. So like it was kind of more so of almost raising myself essentially,
Hmm.
or really in terms of the other siblings having to make sure they raised me. So I didn't go into like the same things that which people growing up in East New York, Brooklyn was kind of going through. So it was a tough realm, I guess you can say, or a very tough way of thinking. But now looking back on it, I'm very grateful for all the people who was definitely in my corner and definitely pushed me to be where I am today. Because granted, like I love my parents, I have nothing but love for them, but I realize that when you're in your 60s, it's hard to try to keep up with 14, 15-year-old trying to chase them around where they're going, are they going to like go to all these places, the things that they're saying, social media and all that. So it's definitely hard for them. So I definitely understand that. But for myself, I think that's where I kind of gained that. I'm trying to get attention in the classroom setting. So that's where that class con aspect probably came from.
So it's interesting that you state that because it's like from how I dialing it in and digesting it, it's like a lot of trial by fire. You know what? Allow me to figure things out, and and it sounds like you're very appreciative of your parents because they were
Mm-hmm.
able to allow you to have those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you sharing those bits and pieces of yourself because it's like it's not that easy just to have the introspective of like hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I've gone up through and trying to direct myself accordingly because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we're at that age we would never really know what we do. We think we know a lot
No.
of things. We
uh,
think it's like, hey, I know everything.
mm-hmm.
But now let's shift our focus to the experiences that shaped our understanding of education. How do these experiences influence the way you approach teaching?
Mm. I would say the way it definitely has shaped my approach. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, we grew up growing up in New York City as a whole, you probably find the same type of things. Like,
Yeah.
do you find like the consensus is maybe, I would say maybe 60 to like 70% really don't care about the whole school aspect, especially in a high school setting. But there's the other
Mm-hmm.
30 who's like, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, because it's not cool to be like getting good grades wherever you come from. It's not cool to be
Mm-hmm.
trying to excel because you don't really see anybody else doing that. If they are, they label like, oh, those are the nerdy kids, or those are the band geeks, things like that. People really putting into extracurriculars because all we see is whether it's whatever's on the outside in terms of the flamboyant and the extracurriculars, things of that nature, or the sports aspect as well. It's kind of like just two roles that like people within our particular demographics, folks that are Black, Hispanic, kind of really see as like the main focus because we don't really
Mm-hmm.
see many people in our own circles in terms of using education as a tool to really get them out of their situation. So for myself, like upon coming into the realm of education, I think that it kind of gave me an opportunity to see, hey, if I was the kid who was getting C's and D's, if I was the
Mm-hmm.
kid who was going to had a tougher time in order to really get to that next level in life,
Mm-hmm.
and still be able to, and God was still able to allow me to make a difference. I can in the classroom setting, I don't see students as okay, you're a bad kid or you're a good kid, as opposed because I mean, many teachers would have probably labeled me as a bad kid growing up. So more so, the way I see it is, it's the behaviors which are good or bad. And I think that, like anybody, if you could change the behavior, you could change the person. So I think that that's my approach upon going into the classroom setting now in terms of walking in. I've heard a multitude of things about a plethora of the students
Hmm.
prior to actually starting the job. Like when I had a teacher going with me through my roster, like, oh yeah, this kid, oh he's bad. This kid asks these type of questions. This kid is annoyed. This. I kind of had to like check him, like, yo, like, thank you for sharing whatever you share, but that's your experience with that kid. That's not my
Yeah.
experience. So I'm not going to allow your experience to kind of make me start to think of these kids in any which way. So kind of for myself, when I walk into any classroom, regardless of who's in
Hmm.
there, my biggest thing is to make sure I give everyone a fair chance. Not like, oh, I heard about you already, or because then I think those projections you end up finding the same things because in your mind that's what you're looking for essentially.
Hmm.
So my biggest thing is always trying to help change some type of behaviors that I find within students because it allows them to really become better and really having that grace and understanding that
Hmm.
these kids are 13, they're 14 years old. When I was 13, 14, I ain't know shit, Steven. Like, I didn't know a damn thing at 13 and 14 years old. So giving people opportunities to make mistakes and not chastise them, not beat them down for those mistakes. Instead, really allowing them to say, hey, I'm here for you even when you do make a mistake to allow us to, how can we get to this next level together?
Wow, like just thinking about that, just like how what you brought up earlier regarding of like how we went through it in high school or in middle school, and how we really don't genuinely think about how teachers would perceive us because it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're the main characters in our own story, and
Mm-hmm.
especially like how your experience into your career where a teacher is trying to implant their preconceived notions of students
Mm-hmm.
into you. It's just like, hey, I haven't even experienced none of this yet,
Mm-hmm.
so don't interject or impose your
Mm-hmm.
experiences and feelings to me. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
let me genuinely make this connection with these students.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that you say that because like I started to think about my middle school teachers and like how I know they always say, Steven, you're a very intelligent student, but
Mm-hmm.
you joke around too
Mm-hmm.
much. But now I'm like, hey man, I still pass the test. I still get 90s and 100. So what's
Mm-hmm.
the problem with me acting like a clown? And that's the part where like the adult me now sees like, oh man, like if I were to reapproach myself differently, knowing that they're human, they got their own problems that they have to face. And then I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, wow. And how some teachers were very impactful to me, and I was just like, oh wow, Miss Hall Williams,
Mm-hmm.
the most Caribbean Jamaican lady you have ever, and she was like old school. Let me tell you something. I don't know what, but she cared about students so
Mm-hmm.
much. And those are like the teachers that I'm like, yo, I will never forget you, regardless if
Mm-hmm.
like I act like a fool, but I knew what you entailed for me. And now
Mm-hmm.
look at me now. I'm a married man. I'm a dad. I'm a getting a higher degree level in
Mm-hmm.
public health, and just processing it and hearing your experiences. And like I want to ask you, what have been some of the most memorable moments in your teaching career, and how have they impact you on your outlook on education?
Ooh, that's a really good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think for myself, what one of the biggest impacts that I've gotten a chance to have in terms of
Mm-hmm.
how I even view like how I view like the realm of education. So
Yeah.
now like working over here in Hawaii has been like one of my first in the classroom setting aspects of teaching. Like prior
Mm-hmm.
to when I was in New York, I was trying to look for other positions. Like, well, actually, was trying to get into the schools because I was always doing like either like some after school programming with them through like coaching or things of that nature. So I was really trying to get into the school. So this is my first opportunity being in the schools like 8 hours a day, not just the after school aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, I think one of the biggest things I've come to find with the education system, at least public education system, I feel like it's like what's the word like out of date. Like it's not up to date with where kids are today in
Mm.
2024. Biggest reason I
Okay.
say that is because like some of the things that they're learning, I feel like in my head, I'm like, who's creating this? Because some of the stuff that we're teaching, I was learning the same exact thing 25, 26 years ago. So why is it that this same thing that it probably was being taught to my sisters before that, their sisters before that, things of that nature, especially around
Mm-hmm.
like the realm of like history and things like that. Like we've done added so many new concepts to history since like then. Like why is it that we're still talking about well, why is it that the textbooks are still all right? We got to focus on Christopher Columbus. We got to focus on this, like a whole litany of things where it's like, okay, maybe we should incorporate some of the newer aspects from like the Black Lives Matter movement, some of the things that have happened, like tragedies as well, the Freddie Gray movement, things of that nature, George Floyd, so that folks are more, their minds are more expanded as opposed to it just being like a one quick fix. Okay, you got to teach them these common core aspects, and if they don't
Mm-hmm.
learn this, like they're not going to be able to pass it. So that's why I say I think it's kind of out of date. Being that in 2024, these kids are a lot more advanced and being able
Mm-hmm.
to digest information, and like in terms of TikTok and things of that nature. As we will say, they're a little woke. So like they want to. So if you stand in front of a classroom back in like, let's say 2004 when you teachers talk about Christopher Columbus, you're digesting it like uh huh. Now you stand in front of a classroom that you talk about Christopher Columbus. A kid will raise their hand like, but wasn't he like a murderer and a rapist and this and this and this? Why is that? Because they see this shit on TikTok. They see this like they get to learn
That
the
is
real
true.
truths. They get to learn the real
Mm-hmm.
truths, and that kind of leaves some teachers flustered. Like, oh wait, 'cause there's no manual on how to be able to answer those type of questions. So that's why I think having the real life experience and allowing kids
Mm-hmm.
to really be themselves in a way in which is still controlled within the classroom is probably one of the most important parts of being a teacher. Um, as well as I think I think the system is kind of out of date, but I also think that in some cases as well, and it's so sad to say, some teachers are out of date as well. Not to try and bash
So
any of that though.
no. That's well, that's also from your experience and what you see,
Mm-hmm.
because like you're in the educational system, so you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what I see, and it's interesting that you say that because how in other continents and in other locations where we have standardized tests, but over
Mm-hmm.
there they don't have standardized tests. They just like it's either you know the material or you know the history or you don't. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Mm-hmm.
So even how you stated about outdated informations of regarding of like history and American history, just like all right,
Mm-hmm.
we're regurgitating watered down information. Like
Mm-hmm.
even for us, we didn't know much until we just like what, we are free thinkers. We got to go
Mm-hmm.
seek the knowledge. And even now that we have technology that's so quickly in our hands, like we got
Mm-hmm.
a computer that's our phone that's in our hands, so we could just all right, let me go on Google, let me go on Bing, let me go on
Mm-hmm.
Yahoo, let me just figure things out and real quick just look them up, or we could just go on scholarly or peer review articles that could follow things in suit and just like all right, boom, now I know my information. And just like
Mm-hmm.
as you stated, like it's difficult for people to catch up where
Mm-hmm.
people have short attention spans, but they
Mm-hmm.
consume so much information and they're just like, all right, hold on, let's slow down. Let's dissect the information
Mm-hmm.
first. And now we can pinpoint what is accurate, what's inaccurate, what's hearsay, what's like, proven fact. And some people tend to state, or from some professions, because like I
Ah.
know what I've seen from clinical psychologists where some of the TikTokers will say, oh, this is mental health of this is that, and some people that are in the field, like they're saying inaccurate things. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have the experience nor the authority, such
Mm-hmm.
as having the degree or going or obtaining the knowledge to speak upon it. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting that you're saying that things were outdated and a little bit watered down from how I'm seeing it or how I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing it as well. But before we just like dive into that and we're gonna shift gears into your journey from the East Coast to Hawaii. So like moving from one coast to another can be like a transformative experience.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how did you how did relocating from the East Coast to Hawaii shaped your ideal and gave you like a quick culture shock?
Okay. I think I would be being remiss if I didn't share even how the opportunity even came up in terms of going
Okay.
to Hawaii. Because
No, dive in. Let's go. Let's go.
originally I was living in Baltimore at the time, working at
Mm-hmm.
the University of Maryland, Baltimore County for some time, working as one of the
Mm-hmm.
program coordinators for the recreations department. Loved the job, loved what I was doing. Had a staff of maybe I'll say 30 to 35 college students. We was able
Mm-hmm.
to take a program that was like essentially when upon taking it, it was like dead to where we ended up bringing it to like one of the highest peak levels that I've ever been able to see. Like I've gotten multiple different awards for those things. Been able to see how like we've changed the entire fabric of how the intramural sports department was at that school. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that for myself, like kind of had like one of those self reflection moments where I kind of felt like, okay, I've been here for a year. I've done everything I can. This programs are jumping, numbers are out the roof. I still didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel like I was doing like my God's work, essentially. Like it's like
Okay.
something was still missing. So I was broached with an opportunity to be able to teach a cardio class as part of what I was already doing on like every like twice a week. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
fell in love with the opportunity. Like love those 10 students which I had. And that really was kind of like the resurgence and like the first time I got to really teach, not just coach, but really just actually teach, create lesson plans, have curriculums, things of that nature, build relationships, and all of that. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I love this thing that I'm doing twice a week for maybe a span of 3 hours. How can I multiply this? But this is what I absolutely love. So I applied to so many different positions over in the in Baltimore area, about 40 applications, I would say, probably even more. Never heard anything back in terms of how never heard anything back in terms of like any type of interviews, anything of that nature, except for one place that was called Teach for America, and they had opportunities all throughout the 50 states. So upon hearing that Hawaii is an option, I'm like, Hawaii, Baltimore. Like, there's no in between. Like, I think I'm gonna go with the one that's like you like that's gonna give you greater opportunities. So upon moving here, I would say one of the things that it helped shaped was that like there is like even outside of the teaching aspect, just being here in Hawaii, like anything
Mm-hmm.
is possible. That's what it kind of showed me. Just being at the fact that a small kid from East New York, Brooklyn, was had a terrible time in the education system, to then getting kicked out of school, to then deciding to go back to school, be on the dean's list, and do finish off 2 years, go to college, finish off that. Like if I was able to have a story like that, then not even knowing in a million years that I'd even be in Hawaii, it showed me, man, whatever you want is achievable essentially. So that's what I kind of first learned when I touched down here. And then some of the I guess culture shocks that kind of changed was that man, all the shit that we learn about Hawaii, that's just not real. Like, it's not like the hulas just walking down the street and people just luau's every day. Like, it's not like that. That's like the tourist aspect of what they would want to sell you. Whereas, like,
Mm.
Hawaii is definitely a very close knit. Some of the things I would say, though, that is true is they're very close knit when it pertains to family. Very close knit. And it doesn't have to be biological family. It can just be like your coaches, your teachers, your like any adults out of a sign of respect, the kids call anyone who's older than them in terms of like adults, they call them aunties and uncles, just to show like that sign of
Mm.
respect. They don't have to be biologically related, but it's just like, hey, it's a term of endearment. So instead of how they'll say on the East Coast, like sir or ma'am, and some people even get offended by that because they think, oh, John called me old. Whereas here it's like, okay, thank you. It's a sign of respect. So that's one of the things I
Yeah.
definitely learned as well, which was great. And I've loved like the different cultures I've gotten to learn about because not only is there Hawaiian culture, but there's also a huge population of Filipinos here as well. So there's Filipino culture, there's Japanese culture here as well. There is what's the last one? There's another one as well. And Polynesian culture. So it's a huge like enclave of different, like a melting pot of different cultures, which is here. That I didn't know privy to even moving here.
Wow, wow. And you know what? It's interesting that you stated that because like especially when you uh talked about your experiences of like, getting kicked out of school and like reinvigorating yourself back into the
Hmm.
education. And we both in a similar we're two birds and flying in the same lane because it's like when we fall short, we have like, okay, we got to reinstall discipline and then let's get back into the grind. And what happened? We started punching things left and right. Like, oh, nah, come
Hmm.
on. I already got punched down. There's nothing more that you can do. I already taste the bottom. So there's nothing
Hmm.
for me just to climb to the top. And your experiences of seeing like, different cultures and how certain influences are very tight niche to family. Like
Hmm.
I remember serving in the guard, Asheray Palomares. kid from Hawaii, Filipino, and he
Mm-hmm.
talked so highly about like how much he had love for his family, and like of
Mm-hmm.
course a kid from Hawaii coming all the way to the East Coast, he was very homesick. So I could see
Mm-hmm.
like I can't even go and hug my mom or talk to my dad,
Mm-hmm.
but he always talked highly well about them, and that's the part where I got so much love and respect for Paulo, and he was a hardworking dude. I could say hardworking Filipino, like
Mm-hmm.
straight up, like well, he's Hawaiian at heart because he was
Uh-huh.
born and raised there. So like hard nosed Hawaiian. That's what I definitely know. But I want to know on your perspective, like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face when adjusting to cultural differences between the East Coast and Hawaii? Because, like, how I express to some of the people in Seattle or those who are
Mm-hmm.
California, I say, like, yo, East Coast, we not nice, but we are
Yeah.
kind.
Uh-huh.
But West Coast, you are nice, but not kind.
Uh-huh.
Like we could pick up like a baby stroller on the staircase going to the subway station, but and not say expect a thank you or nothing because it's like it's innate to us. Like, yo, I
Mm-hmm.
got you. We're gonna help you out and keep it pushing. So like, how did you adjust to the cultural differences between like Maryland and New York to Hawaii?
So I would say one of the biggest things that I like it's a huge culture shock to me almost upon coming down here. Wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
like in the teaching aspect or being like because also there is like very little to no African Americans here in Hawaii
Mm-hmm.
unless they're in like either army or navy or some type of like force in that regard. So I would
Yeah.
say anytime in which I was approached with somebody, they're like, "Oh, so like how long have you been in the navy?" I'm like, actually not in the navy." Like, "Oh, army, right?" I'm like, "No, not army." I'm just a teacher. They're like, oh, so, but it's interesting to see that like, they've kind of like put teachers on a pedestal because they know how hard they have it in terms of like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, like you're the one that on the front lines in terms of helping out our kids become men and become young women as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say. But one of the huge culture shocks to me was our first volleyball game. We were going up against Wheeler, and like on America, whenever they'll have like coach get upset, they run up to the ref like, "Hey, that was a bad call." This like they'll say their piece. Like they don't say it in a friendly way.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey, hey, ref, this you missed this." So me being like, okay, I've been coaching for some time. Like typically as a ref, you kind of learn like this is what you kind of do. Like this is going to be part of the job. Like they're not going to really
Mm-hmm.
fight you or anything like that. So one missed call happens. I shoot over to the ref. I'm like, ref, that was a bad call. Like you missed it. It was the player had hit the ball twice, which
Yeah.
in volleyball you can only hit it one time. So I
Mm-hmm.
shot over to him. He's like, oh, I missed. I'm sorry, man. So again, as I'm walking back down, all I see is somebody come up behind me. Was like, Coach, don't you ever yell at my referees like that again. I'm like, wait. The play that happened already. I'm like, wait, huh? I'm like, that's kind of standard in sports. Well, at least that's what I thought. But here, it's not.
Yeah.
That's a sign of disrespect. You running up on somebody and like calling them out for a mistake. That's what I had to kind of learn early. Like, hey, here, like all that shit that you learned on the East Coast, well, not even on the East Coast, just in America, essentially, those rules don't
Mm-hmm.
apply here because we show respect. If they make a bad call, okay, you know what, that happened. That's whatever. Because at the end of the day, this is for the kids. You're supposed to be setting an example for who? The kids as well. So it's like win or lose, you're going to show some respect to like whether it's your opponent, whether it's the referees, the players shake the referee's hands. I was like, what is this?
Oh
I was
damn!
like,
I would have been
what?
flabbergasted too. Like,
I was
whoa,
I
hold
was
on.
thrown for a loop. I was like, wait, huh? And that's at the end, even win or lose, you chant the other team's name as well. I was like, what is going on? Like this is so bizarre to me in terms of that. That's why I kind of learned real early that like don't make don't make this game about you. Essentially, like if something happens, you brush it off. You could walk up to them and say, hey, I think you missed this call. Maybe you want to watch out for this next time. Like there's always a better approach, which was not what I learned coaching in I would say in the States essentially.
Wow, that's definitely interesting because like you and I both know like how competitive it'll get,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, yo, it's either me or you. It's
Uh
cutthroat.
huh.
It's like,
Uh
yo,
huh.
we win as a team, but we lose as individuals. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, bro,
Absolutely.
like,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the part that's like, okay, that's interesting. Especially like, oh, don't ever run down. And be like, bro, have you not been in New York? Have
See,
you
that's
not
what I
been?
was like. She's like, nah, we don't do that shit here. You ain't gonna do that shit. I was like, you got it. You got it, OG. You got it.
Hey, yeah,
You got
you got it, boss. Like you got it. But just so you know, that's gonna fly on these states when
it.
you go over there and you're gonna be like, nah, hold on,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. Yeah. So That's interesting because it's just like, of course, it's different cultures, different feelings, and how it's being like, incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, of how you have to adjust and knowing of certain intricacies. Wow, tongue twister, right? Mental health and growth. Like, mental health plays a critical role in our ability to adapt. And how have you seen mental health and the well-being influence your personal development, and in the context of your personal growth and intertwining to your teaching career?
Ooh. I think for sure, mental health is something that's definitely. I'm very happy that it's a lot more spoken on now, especially with like since like well due to COVID and since COVID has happened in terms of especially in
Mm-hmm.
young African American males as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very happy that that's something that's definitely been brought onto the forefront. For myself, I would say it's definitely important in order to really not only speak on it, but in terms of showing people different signs of help and how they can be able to seek out help as well in the event that they do need it. Being that just for myself, like I feel as though growing up, never really thought of that, never really heard of it. You just like, okay, kind of just taught, okay, just suck it up, like you'll be all right. Like, hey, your girl left you. You may go to like a depressive state, just like, hey, like, there's more fish in the sea. Just move on, essentially. As opposed to there being people like in my inner circles at the time, whether it was like my father or anybody else, really trying to help pick us up. But I also think
Mm-hmm.
that essentially you have to know how to deal with your emotions to then be able to help tell somebody how to deal with their emotions as well. So, like at
I
least
agree.
for myself, like having a father who was loving, he provided, he made sure that roof was over our head, made sure that we had clothes on our back, food on our table, things like that. But there was some areas as well that I would definitely say maybe in a realm of like the emotional standpoint, which he was just closed off at within himself. So when certain things would come up, like I would see like whether it was affecting the family or was affecting him, who kind of just like close down. So not really address those type of emotions. So I think that for myself, I did that for a very long time as well, and to a point where it wasn't like helpful nor healthy at all. So I think that that's what I've kind of looked to strive to make sure that when I'm working with young students as well, that we are going to talk about your emotions. And whenever I do talk with students, I always credit back to maybe my realm working in social work for a little bit in terms of
Yeah.
making sure those students know that I'm there for them. Not just saying, okay, I'm there for you if you need me, and that's it. No, but really taking those extra steps. I always say, like, especially with working with, I would say, like younger middle schooler kids, like being I'm much taller than like a sixth grader, probably if I have to get down to one knee and having that conversation eye to eye, so it doesn't come off as this huge authoritative figure standing over you trying to help you out. Instead, it looks like
Okay.
I'm getting down on one knee. I'm like, hey, I'm right here with you. Like, what's up? What's going on? I'm here to help you. I'm here to help make breakthroughs as well because I think that if it's like, whether it's from a student standpoint or even a teacher standpoint as well, it's very crucial to really understand and work on and find ways to work on your mental health because that's essentially the true antithesis of who you are. Being that if you don't know who you are, you're not going to be able to show up for not only for yourself but for others as well. When having to stand in front of a classroom full of 30 students, all 15 years old, just trying to learn from you and to essentially be a sponge.
Wow. Wow. That's See, I didn't really think about it that in that way because, like, on especially when you brought up about COVID and how mental health became a bit more on the forefront,
Mm-hmm.
and especially regarding of men's mental health, even though it's still a crisis because due to high suicide ratings in amongst
Mm-hmm.
men, and it's I would say it's an open subject where you are allowed to be vulnerable amongst your male colleagues without no judgment. But it's
Mm-hmm.
how society kind of warp the whole situation and throw it right back at you. And then you just like, all right, hold on. I can't even be vulnerable enough to
Mm-hmm.
the people that I trust because it like again, I always stated like they end up weaponizing it and throwing
Mm-hmm.
right back at you.
Mm-hmm.
And especially how your perspective on how you sharing like your dad was loving, providing, and able to give a decent life for you and your siblings, but tend to have the old traditions of like, what, let me lace up my bootstraps,
Mm-hmm.
suppress the emotion and move on, which is a benefit and a curse at the same time, because you're able to, like, you know what, I'm gonna power through the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like that struggle becomes too much for me to bear,
Mm-hmm.
and who can I lay my hand to talk to, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's sometimes where how it incorporates to us men and
Mm-hmm.
to the little boys, where, oh, it's not manly to cry, it's not manly to express yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
at times where expression is necessary when it's deemed to freedom. So
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, so what I can do, oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Wow. I that's me. But coming back into that, it's just like, I'm a big advocate for mental health, and I always state that on every segment that I speak upon, because
Mm-hmm.
I also suffered from mental health, especially, like, you know, facing on PTSD, facing on
Mm-hmm.
depression, and just try to, you know, will myself on certain standpoints, and, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, be the pillar of my family for my wife, for my daughter, like, you know, for my family. And seeing how you are able to take the bits and pieces of
Mm-hmm.
everyone and build upon it is important and is essential. And then you trying to teach the next generation, you know, and you and I probably feel the same way, that we aim for free thinkers. We aim for people
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, if you're going to do something from trial and error, don't quit, keep on going,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And how I want to ask you this, like, you know, what are some of your strategies that you found helpful in maintaining your mental well-being during times of significant change and
Mm-hmm.
transitions, or times where you, like, you know, have to reflect upon yourself?
Mm-hmm. I would say I would not be able to. Well, even before you even get into me, I just want to say thank you for even sharing like your own story as well, because that's just as important. Like I know I'm the guest, but it's just as important to be able to have these type of conversations as brothers, to really show that it's not just like no one's suffering alone. You always have
Yeah.
someone that's there as well. So thank you for that, Stephen. But I would say for myself, I'd be lying if I didn't say that almost everything in which I do, not only for myself, comes back from God. In all honesty, like that my biggest foundation is my faith. If
Amen.
without, I'll say without my faith, I would be nothing in terms of that. Like being that I've tried like the trial, I had trial and error moments where maybe okay, I just do it on my own. Maybe I'll just meditate it away. Maybe I'll just go to therapy. I guess all these avenues are great. But I'll just say just for me per se, those in
Mhm.
conjunction with my faith and my relationship with God is something that's allowed me to really overcome those things. Like for myself, like I come from a very deep family that has like a lot of spiritual ties coming from Haiti. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of gifts and things of that nature that my family has. So like for myself, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you a lot. I've had so many different deja vu moments of things happening, having messages directly sent to me from God in terms of, hey, this is what your next step is going to be. Hey, this is what you're going to be
Mhm.
doing. Like kind of for instance, I'm maybe kind of going off track as well, but kind of for instance, like I remember before going to University of Maryland, I was in Brooklyn, New York, miserable with the type of job that I had. I had a message, well, it came in the form of a message. I had a dream where a gentleman who I used to work with came up to me and said, hey, I have an opportunity for you in Maryland. It's going to change your life forever. I woke up from it like, the hell? What's that supposed to mean? Whatever, cool.
Yeah.
That same that happened on a Tuesday. By Saturday, I kind of had like a emotional breakdown, and it was just off a simple conversation. My sister asking me, "Lionel, are you happy?" Simple as words like that. And for the very first time, I felt like I didn't have an answer. And just as simple as that may be, "Are you happy?" I didn't have an answer,
Mhm.
and so I just said no. And as soon as I said no, it's like everything I was holding in and everything I was suppressing just kind of like washed, like completely came over me and just like washed away essentially.
Mhm.
In terms of like I just started bawling, crying, just realizing, yeah, I'm not happy here. And then it kind of went back to the idea of like, okay, you know what? Let me figure out if I'm not happy here, why continue doing what I'm doing? So immediately afterwards, I was like, you know what? Let me try to reach out to some avenues, see where I can be able to go and change my life. Like as silly as it may sound, I said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna put all the different places out because I was just miserable in New York. I'm gonna put all the different places which I want to move to in a hat. Steven, guess what area? Guess what place came out the hat?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Maryland. I kid you not.
Yeah.
I put Maryland, I put Houston, Texas, Mexico, California. I put like 5 different places. Maryland came up.
Wow.
To me, that was a gift. That was a direct message from God. Like, I told you, it's time for you to pack your bags and dip. Like, I got something for you that's going to end up changing your life for the better. So I'd be like lying if I didn't tell you that almost everything in which I do, I think even that's even why I even became a teacher, because I devoted my life to God way back when, in terms of saying, a lot of shit that I'm doing, it's going to either leave me in two places, dead or in jail, essentially. So I gotta really buckle down. I can't try and live this life alone. I can't really try
Mm-hmm.
and do everything on my own accord with the two hands that I've been given if
Yeah.
I'm not working with my creator. So I think that is my hugest foundation that's allowed me to really understand and know how to really work on my mental health, how to really work on myself, really have
Mm-hmm.
my that's those self-reflection moments and realize that when I'm like kind of effing up as well in my own life, and that's kind of what it's instilled in me and kind of what brought me to becoming a teacher, because it's saying that I'm not doing this for me. Like, yeah, like I love teaching, I love this aspect and things of that nature, but this is like almost like my assignment that I have to be doing in this lifetime right now, during this juncture right now. And I found it to be such a beautiful experience, I would say, in terms of having a relationship with God and using it within the classroom. Granted, I'm not preaching God in the classroom or anything like that. I
Yeah.
let my students know that if you're going to be with me, essentially, you're with the presence of God, essentially, being that He's with me at all times. And that allows for me to, I mean, I think that's why my classroom is probably one of the most fun classrooms that the kids love. I try to kick them out during lunch so I can have some me time. Like there's just that attractiveness that they want to be around is something in which that I found that really helped propel me as well to this, like the newer levels, which I've been able to do simply through
That's
my
interesting.
God.
Oh, wow, that's interesting because it's like, it's you doing your good works
Hmm.
and like, and trying to remain positive as much as you can. And like, I would say not everyone is perfect. Like let's get that straight here. And like, I appreciate you sharing your faith as well. Cause like, I believe that Jesus, excuse me, Jesus is my savior as well. So I just like, what, I take that in. And how are you saying like, how faith came into be? For me, I was a skeptic, I was an
Hmm.
atheist, I was and all those cumbersomes. And then like
Hmm.
once I started to realize that faith and science, God and science is literally like we're together, I was just
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, it's quiet, like
Hmm.
I proclaim my faith back to Christianity.
Hmm.
And even then, like how even when I was facing my struggles regarding of my mental health and utilizing the gym, and I realized that I can use the gym and reading the Bible
Hmm.
synonymously. Like before I
Hmm.
go work out, I make sure I try to read a page a day before I start. Like, you know what, let me read this chapter, let me read this, and then boom, I go out
Hmm.
there and just really being focused and honed in. Like I would say, like there were a lot of times when I was in the military, like and even in between of everything that like I didn't even pray to God, but I had people praying for me. I had my
Hmm.
wife praying for me. I had my mom praying for me. I had my mother-in-law praying for me. Like I had people that literally like, protect me, even though certain moments in the military were harsh or were emotionally testing.
Hmm.
And just processing it. Of course, like, this ties into mental health and growth because it's like the more you learn, the more you observe, the more you adjust, the better your outcome
Oh.
would be, you
Hmm.
know. And even then, I was just like, you know what? I always ask, like, hey, God, just use me to do your works or use me to be better. And even like, just trying to take those steps. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm not expecting an overnight sensation like
Yeah.
right there. I just like allow me to grow and learn. And I guess that's important. I feel like that's
Hmm.
important to just acknowledge those things and try to be better, because it's not selfish to focus on your health and your spiritual
Hmm.
well-being where it could benefit everyone else. Because if you're good and you're doing God's work, or you're making sure everyone else is good, your environment changes,
Hmm.
everybody feels
Hmm.
good. So it's just like, oh, okay, so we were both in the same limelight and working things along. And since you're already talking about like, incorporating your faith and not imposing your faith into the children, but they
Hmm.
feel like, hey, I'm having fun, I'm learning, I'm absorbing, I'm doing everything, I
Hmm.
respect my teacher. Like incorporating the art of teaching, like, you know, it is a blend of, like, you know, passion, creativity, and
Hmm.
empathy. How do these elements come together in your approach of education and student engagement?
I think for myself, like the way I'm able to really blend all of those things is in terms of really being able to really see the students for who they are, not having any preconceived notions, as mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
not really going into it and saying, well, another teacher already told me this, any things of that nature. And I think that just
Mm-hmm.
really setting a foundation from like I think I did this very early in my own when I first started. When like the first day of school, upon each class, I kind of gave them like a little brief introduction to myself, let them know like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like my name is Lionel Edouard. I hail from Brooklyn, New York. I just want to let you guys know that like, yeah, you may see me as your teacher or anything like that, but like just a little background information about me. I wasn't the greatest student. I wasn't a great student. I had some trials and tribulations around my path. The reason in which I came here to your school, in terms of being here in Hawaii now, is because I feel as though I have so many gifts that I've been given. I think that you guys would, I think being able to not only teach you guys, but also learn from you as well would be something that would be a great relationship that we can have. Because one thing I've learned very early upon moving here to Hawaii is there's a very big teacher turnover rate in terms of teachers
Wow.
being here for a year and then they end up going to another school, especially in the public school setting. And not only that, from what I've learned as well, is that there's a lot of programs and like incentivized programs that Department of Education does to try to get teachers from like the state, so outreaching teachers as well, which is kind of how I came in as well. So a lot of the
Yeah.
students really don't build relationships with the teachers because it's like, okay, you'll be here for this year, and then you'll probably be elsewhere at some other school, some better school, things like that. So what I've learned early was when a student asked me, because it was me when I was in my early teaching program, me and two other teachers. The student asked me, "Are you just here to kind of like learn how to teach and then you want to just leave?" And I was like, kind of taken back by that, but I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
respect that you asked that question because you've probably seen that in your past already. You've probably seen teachers just be in your classroom observing like how they do with teacher programs. They teach you for like 6 months, excuse me, like 6 weeks, then you never see them again. So that you don't, just like you as a student, you're not going to build a relationship that someone's that's just going to be gone in a couple of weeks. It's like, cool, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So from the jump, I wanted to let them know exactly who I am, what I stood for as well, and the type of things that I look to bring within the classroom setting. And I think that for myself, I remember even hearing it as I'm like having my little speech. One girl in the corner was like, I like him already. Like, I remember saying like I said, I don't know why, but I like him already, and that's the type of thing that I look to bring. Because going in, I was petrified. I'm like, okay, I really wanted this opportunity. This is my first real time having my own classroom, teaching so many students. It's not just like, all right, I'm coaching for like an hour or two, and then we're gone. Like this is like the real deal, essentially. So I was petrified. I was praying about it the night before. I was like, God, like if you sent me out here to do your work, the students in which I'm going to be able to be with is going to essentially we're going to flourish because not there's never been a time in which I've never flourished in whatever opportunity I've been given. Not saying any opportunity has always been perfect. No, never perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'll definitely say for myself, I found that things tend to have a lot of light when walking with the light of God, essentially. So I would say that's been my biggest thing in which how I've been able to blend the empathy, be able to blend the charismaticness, be able to blend the funniness, all the different elements that like I would say no teaching program can teach you, being that
Yeah.
you gotta have your own personality as well. Yes, we're gonna teach you how to be able to dissect this textbook and have all these different research modalities, which is great. I'm not knocking any of that. I'm saying that the way you really connect with the student and have that buy-in is by really being your authentic self. But what is your authentic self? Because your authentic self could be a Grinch, essentially, and the kid's not going to want to be open to that. So I'm not telling you to fake it, but I think that the student or the teachers who are just genuine, down to earth, see them for who they are the ones that end up having the most, well, the best, I guess, relationships inside and outside the classroom.
Wow. Like just just you saying that, like, I kind of just started to reflect on some of my, like, you know, high school teachers, certain individuals, certain people, just like how, like, I never forget Mr. Kapadia.
Hmm.
Like, you know, that dude, uh, you know, but he always gives me detention just so in case to straighten me out, because I was
Uh,
the buck wild. He was trying to, I was the stallion in the high school, so to speak. So I was just
uh,
like, hey, you're not gonna tame me. But this dude always like, hey, one thing I'm gonna make sure you're gonna graduate,
mm,
and in which he already, like, you know, extracted certain individuals who weren't really motivated to finish.
mm,
And that's the part where I just kind of realized, I was like, oh wow, like, of course, and I was influenced by positive people as well, just to shift things along. So I'm just like, wow, just taking it all in and hearing the perspective on your side, just like, hey, you not only just going to teach these children, you're also going to influence them and how they can be, you know, byproducts of citizens and out in the real world. Like, you know, hey,
mm,
you're not only taking some of the teachings of your parents, you're also taking some of the teachings that I also installed. Because, like,
mm,
you know, they're in school with you, like, you know,
mm,
8 hours a day. So
mm,
you're also getting a rapport of them, and you're also taking pieces of them.
mm,
And I really genuinely appreciate you, like, you know, sharing your experience, your insights, and some of certain things that come into play. And as we wrapped up today's episode, let's reflect on the insights shared by our really well renowned guest, my boy Lionel,
mm,
and the values and lessons learned. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse narratives that shape our world. And in concluding question to you, my brother, what are your final thoughts or advice that would you like to leave to our listeners or viewers
mm.
with, especially those considering a career in education or navigating the significant changes of life?
Ooh, I would say one thing I want to leave with people is that just never be opposed to any opportunity that you like, regardless of how big it may be. In terms of sometimes, well, the reason our dreams are dreams is because they're so big and it seems so vast, which is why
Mm-hmm.
sometimes not many people within, whether it's your own circle or even yourself, may believe it to be true, essentially. But the reason that you have those goals, you have those dreams, is because it's meant for you in particular. So there may be a lot of people on the back burner who may talk down on it or think that's not achievable, that's not possible, things of that nature. But the reason that God gave you that dream is because that message and that gift is for you. So I would say definitely go out and chase it. Being that a year ago today, I never thought I'd be in Hawaii. I was living in Baltimore, Maryland, thinking, all right, I'm happy here, but not knowing that so much more can then open up essentially. So definitely just continue to chase those dreams, and the rest shall unfold.
Hell yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I like that. I like that. I like that, yo. Yo, like, comment, subscribe, tune in. Yo, stay tuned next episode. This is my guy, my brother, Lionel. Thank you, bro.
Okay,
God
brother. Thanks for
bless.
having me.
Peace out.